Mel Kiper released his final mock draft for the 2025 NFL draft. So I want to break down both his picks for Denver in round one and round two. But can we take a quick moment here to kind of call Kiper out on his shit? It's April 8th. We're over 2 weeks away from the draft, and he's just done calling it for the whole draft. This is, some poor performance on Kiper's part. But now we're going to look at the full 2-round mock draft in just a moment. But I do want to get you guys involved in the chat really quickly. Shout out your city for me in the comment section below. We just crossed 34,000 subscribers, so it's always fun to see how far and wide Broncos country truly stretches. Now, let's start with pick number 1, where the Tennessee Titans select Cam Ward. No surprise here. Travis Hunter has seen a huge uptick in his stock recently. He goes to the Browns. Abdul Carter then falls to the Giants. And then the Patriots beef up their offensive line with the LSU left tackle. The Jags go with Mason Graham. I've seen every mock have Graham to the Jags and then this Raiders selection, which is Ashton Jeanty. So unfortunately, instead of Jeanty playing for the Broncos, he plays for a different AFC West team. The Jets support their offensive line as well, while the Panthers add a cornerstone on defense, the Georgia do-it-all defender. Shedeur Sanders falls all the way to New Orleans at pick number 9 to compete with Derek Carr for that starting gig. Warren goes to the Windy City, while the Niners add to their secondary Michigan cornerback Will Johnson. I think that's a great pick by San Francisco. The Cowboys end up taking a running back that Denver, I think, is hoping falls to them. It is UNC running back Omarion Hampton. So we'll kind of pause right here and talk about Hampton for a second because I think there's a very real chance that he is the pick for the Broncos at number 20, but this is contingent, of course, on him being available at number 20, which for a while Denver was used to having, their first or second choice. But when you go to the playoffs, you have to have a good plan, not B. I'm talking plan D, plan E, because you may go through your top 3 or 4 candidates. If your top 3 guys are Jeanty, Warren, and Hampton, they go in the top 12 picks. So this is where things get interesting a little bit for Denver as they start to move down their board a little bit. All right, let's move on to pick number 20 a little bit. We've got the Dolphins up next at 13. They go with, I think, one of the most versatile DBs we've seen enter the draft in recent memory, the Texas corner, Jahdae Barron. The Colts take Colston Loveland. So this is another player I could see Denver wanting, and their top 4 guys potentially gone by the Colts at 14. Atlanta adds to their pass rush with the FBS sack leader Mike Green out of Marshall. The Cardinals go wide receiver in round 1 back-to-back years. Marvin Harrison Jr. and now Matthew Golden. Then the Bengals select the best player from Alabama's defense, Jahad Campbell. The Seahawks go with an offensive lineman, Kelvin Banks. The Buccaneers, 1 pick before Denver, select Nick Emanwori, South Carolina safety. And with the 20th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos select Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. Let's discuss McMillan a little bit, but also the rise we're seeing in mock drafts between, Kiper today, I've seen Jeremiah, I've seen Field Yates, start to zone in on a wide receiver at 20 for Denver. Last week, I think we were talking about Luther Burden. This week, it's McMillan. So some background on McMillan. He's got good size. That's the first thing that jumps out to me. 6'4", 219 pounds. He is not like a speed demon, right? He's not a Marvin Mims guy. No, he's closer to like a Cortland Sutton style of receiver. He was a big-time recruit for the Arizona Wildcats. He's got a lot of trophies and a lot of hardware. First team All-American, first team All-Big 12. He had a fantastic 2023 season. Then going into 2024, suffered an injury during spring practice. And his 2024 numbers, they're not bad by any stretch. 1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns. But I think they were a little underwhelming. And I think an injury that led to going into the season is a fair thing to point out here. Now, my reaction to this is it's not my first, second, third, fourth, or honestly even fifth choice for the Broncos. And this comes from 2 angles. What I, if I were a GM, would do, and also what I think Sean Payton would do. And I think Sean Payton is much more like trusting of this current receiver room than what Kiper and some other people mocking Denver are going to do believe. So I don't believe they're going to go with a wide receiver at 20. But when you look at the 2023 and 2024 season, like I mentioned, that injury, slight regression right there. I never look at production as the ultimate line in the sand for making a conclusion on a prospect. You guys know Bailey Zappi holds the FBS record for touchdowns in a single season, more than Joe Burrow. No one thinks Bailey Zappi is better than Joe Burrow. There's so much that goes into production, right? For a wide receiver, what if your quarterback sucks? You're a great player, but they can't throw you the ball. What if you're in an offense that wants to run first, right? So don't look at production as, oh, that receiver's better than that receiver. There's so much that feeds into it. But for me, the reason why you're not sensing a lot of overall excitement around this pick is I don't feel that they need to go receiver in round 1. And that comes from a standpoint of I believe in this receiver room more than the average pundit does. And 2, I don't think McMillan's even the best receiver in this draft class, and it's not a very good receiver draft class. So I feel like this is a reach in my opinion. Now, Kiper offered an explanation that I just disagree with. Here's what he said. He isn't a blazer, but he can make tough catches with his body control and sure hands. Consider this too. Nix threw 22 red zone touchdown passes last season, tied for 6th in the NFL. Now there's a chance he'd be throwing jump balls in the end zone to Courtland Sutton, Evan Ingram, and McMillan. Look out, AFC West pass defenses. So you already have a quarterback who had success in the red zone last year. You added another red zone target for him, and that's reasoning to get a third? There's only one football. Why would you need 3 red zone targets? If you wanted to add to your receiver room, don't you think you'd want to diversify your receiver room portfolio a little bit? I feel like you should be pretty confident in what you have in Courtland Sutton and Evan Ingram in the red zone. If the goal is to make Nix a better passer, which going receiver in round 1 should be the goal, then you should find someone that brings something new to the table. Not a third red zone target. You're good at that standpoint. So that's why I have a handful of pushback on a McMillan selection at pick number 20. Round 2 and the rest of round 1 coming up next. But first, a quick shout out to Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets even faster and easier. You see, prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. So if you want to go see a Rockies game or an Avs game or a Nuggets game, check out Game Time first, because if you're like me and you procrastinate a little bit, my mom calls me day late, dollar short, Game Time is a great place to visit. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. I put all that information for you guys in the comments and description of today's video. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time, the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, if I'm going to stand here and pout about a McMillan selection, I should at least tell you what I would do differently. So I'm going to go through my top 10 preference. Number 1, Ashton Jeanty. Very, very unlikely. Tyler Warren, unlikely. Caleb Johnson, this is where I'm a bit of an island because no one really seems to have him this high. I think he's going to turn out to be a tremendous back. So he's coming in at 3. And they're almost like tied between him and Hampton, but I'm going to stay true to my gut here and stick with Johnson at 3, Hampton at 4, but you could easily swap these and I wouldn't have an issue with it. Colston Loveland comes in at 5. So in this situation here, 4 of your top 5 guys are gone. Now, McMillan doesn't even sniff the top 5 for me. In fact, he comes in at number 10. I'm going to go with Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolan at 6. I think you can always load up on interior pass rushers because there's no worse place for a quarterback to get pressure than right up the middle. And Nolan last year for Ole Miss, right around 300 pounds, had 6.5 sacks. Now, there was some questionable tape from his time at Texas A&M, but last year, for the Rebels, I thought he was tremendous. Golden's my number one receiver in this class. So if you really want to help Bo Nix out, I like Golden. I think he also brings something new to the table, not a third red zone target. I'll put Derek Harmon, the Oregon DT, transfer from Michigan State, another 300-pound plus behemoth that had 5 sacks last year. Jahad Campbell, this one's new to my radar. Producer Sam kind of talked me into it a little bit. With Alex Singleton over 30, coming off an ACL, and this run defense rearing its ugly head at the end of last season, I know you added Dre Greenlaw, but if you want to go best player available, Campbell at 20 might be the pick. And now you've got 2 great linebackers for years to come. And then I'll put McMillan at number 10. So that's my preference order for Denver at number 20. Now we're going to look at the rest of round 1 and round 2, but make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're going to have free draft content for the next 2.5 weeks, unlike Kiper, who's just checking out right now. Latest rumors as to what Denver's going to do. We're also going to go live for day 1, so if you're looking for a free place to watch the draft without commercial breaks, we are your home. And we just crossed over 34,000 strong, so join one of the fastest growing Broncos communities out there. Let's kind of rapid fire through the rest of round 1 a little bit here. So at 21, the Steelers select Derek Harmon. So you saw where I had him ranked. The Chargers add to their O-line. We've got the Packers adding a pass rusher. The Vikings go offensive line. Texans trying to replace their left tackle who they traded with Josh Connerly out of Oregon. The Rams go for Stafford's replacement, Jackson Dart. Now we've got Shamir Stewart off the board. He's one of the most athletic defensive linemen in this class, falling to the Commanders at 29. Harrison goes to the Bills. We've got Simmons and James Pierce rounding out the first round. On to round 2. A couple of quarterbacks off the board to begin with. Some people think Tyler Shuck is a first-round guy. Some people think he's a seventh-round guy. I think he's more like a fourth-round player. Jalen Milroe, I also think is closer to a fourth-round player than a second-round player. Emeka Ibuka, another receiver, if you're interested in that market. We've got Travion Henderson, Elijah Arroyo, Kenneth Grant, and Trey Amos. Let's stop here for a second because these are 3 players that I could see Denver having some interest in for the second round. Now, obviously, they go way before the Broncos' second-round pick, but it's tough to speculate what's going to happen in the first round, let alone the second round of the draft. So Walter Nolan, we'll get to in a second, actually. Yeah, I think, did we just do his pick? Anywho, we'll get to him in a moment. But Walter, yeah, let's go Trayvon Henderson. So Henderson going in the beginning stages of round 2. If Denver goes receiver in round 1, I fully expect / hope and believe they go with a a running back in round 2. And Henderson, one of the 2 Ohio State backs in this class, I think there is a lot to like about his game when it comes to a combination of speed and size. Elijah Arroyo, if they decide to go running back in round 1 and want a new tight end in round 2 or 3, this is a fun name to watch for. He missed a lot of time from 2022 to 2023 at the U, but then he put together a healthy 2024 season, 590 yards and 7 touchdowns with Cam Ward. And then Kenneth Grant, if you want to go interior defensive line, this is your new tree stump. This is your new DJ Jones, 330 pounds. Now, the tape is a little inconsistent at times, but he's got awesome athletic traits. For 331 pounds, he runs like 270 pounds, which sounds a little bit hyperbolic, but it's not all that far off. And then we got Walter Nolan, who I think goes in just a moment on this mock. He's one of my favorite players in this draft. 6.5 sacks last year, just a hair under 300 pounds. It's just not every year. I mean, that sounds also like a little theatric, but truly, it's not every year you see a player with 300-ish pounds in weight go with 6.5 sacks. All right, moving on in our mock draft here, we've got the Colts going with a Arizona offensive lineman who's going to switch to guard. The Falcons add Benjamin Morrison, who I think is a really good pick for round 2 for a team. Tyler Booker, Darius Alexander, a couple of offense and defensive linemen going next. Then we've got JT Tuimoloau, the Ohio State edge rusher, off to Cincinnati, staying in the Buckeye State. And then Quinshon Judkins, a different Buckeye, going to the Broncos at pick 51. So let's pause here and talk about Judkins going to Denver, because there is a very good chance that Sean and George Paton decide, with how deep this draft class is at running back, we're not going to reach on one in round one if Jeanty and Hampton go. We're comfortable with getting someone else in round one and circling back to running back in round two. Now, a little bit of background on Judkins. 6 foot, 221 pounds, sub 4.5 40-yard dash. I don't want you guys to get caught up too much in the numbers, but that's a rare combination. To be that big and move that quickly. Usually it's one of the two, right? Like Audric Estime last year, good size, but he had cinder blocks for feet at the combine. No, Judkins, he's got great size and great speed. So he started off at Ole Miss. He tore it up there in Oxford, goes to Ohio State, and he's a big part of that national championship run. The numbers don't scream, oh, this is a player I want to get my hands on. But he also split carries with Henderson, who went 10-ish picks before him. What's going to jump out to Sean Payton about Judkins is the receiving ability. Back-to-back years with over 20 grabs, which doesn't seem like a big number. Got to factor in that the college football game is not designed for running backs to get a lot of receptions. Quarterbacks are frantic, they're young, and when pressure gets to them, they hardly get to their third or fourth read, which a lot of times is the running back. Whereas in the NFL, quarterbacks are a lot more calm and composed and poised, and so they go through their progressions. Okay, it's not there. Dump it off to my running back. Could not spit that out. And that's where Judkins, I think, could excel. And we all look back and go, I didn't know he had this part of his game. Well, that's because he never got the opportunity in Columbus to do so. Plus, why would Will Howard throw to him when Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Ibuka, and who's the other star receiver they have all on that receiving corps? So there was just no reason to ever not go to one of their terrific wide receivers. Now, the pick that comes in just after Judkins is a pick that I'm more interested in if the Broncos want to go a wide receiver route in rounds 1 or 2. And that's Jaden Higgins. So let's kind of go through the rest of this round 2 mock draft. But Jaden Higgins, I think, is one of the most slept-on receivers in this class. He doesn't have the most extensive route tree from Iowa State, but he can stretch the field, and I think he's going to be a quarterback's best friend. 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns. So kind of looking over the rest of this round 2 mock, and there are a couple of players that go past the Broncos that I'd have interest in. Moving on a little bit, because none of those names necessarily too much. Jalen Noel, how about Iowa State having 2 receivers go in the first 2 rounds? Has that ever happened before? But Darian Porter, I don't think it's a great fit for the Broncos due to their lack of need at corner, but he's 6'3" and he's a track star. That's a very rare combination. I feel like this draft class is full of rare combinations. And my guy Caleb Johnson falls to the Chiefs at pick 63, and I sure hope he does not terrorize Denver for the next 6-7 years. But as I was saying, with Jaden Higgins, I think a better combination. Like let's look at the mock draft picks that Kiper made for the Broncos, and then let me offer a couple of tweaks and suggestions. So in round 1, he went with Tet McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona. And then in round 2, he goes with Quinshon Judkins. I'd rather him go Caleb Johnson in round 1 or Travion Henderson. And then in round 2, go with Jaden Higgins. I think Johnson in round 1 and Higgins in round 2 is going to be a better duo than McMillan and Judkins. May not feel that way right now because most analysts have McMillan as a round 1 guy, but man, were those analysts right when they selected or thought, who's the Arizona receiver that went to the Patriots that just completely flamed out? Why am I blanking? Yes, Google him, please. But anyway, yeah, N'Keal Harry. Did he have a better career than like A.J. Brown or Deebo Samuel or DK Metcalf, all round 2 guys? I think you can get a receiver later than reaching for one in round 1. So that's my kind of 2 cents plus another 50 cents on this mock draft from Kiper. Overall, not super in love with it. I'd give it a C in that I feel like a little bit on the generous side. And that's the tough thing about mock drafts. I don't have a crystal ball. There's nothing I can say to convince those of you that agree with me or disagree with me vehemently, but we just got to give it 2 or 3 years and see what happens. But that's going to do it for us on today's show. We'll be live in a couple hours, so I'll see everyone soon.